Hello, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us. You will need your headset on if you can't hear me. I want to just welcome everybody in the room and online, and just to explain that what we're doing that what we're doing today is slightly different because what we're focusing on is how we can improve protection for the ocean beyond COP. So we're arranging today's event so that it's a discussion that allows us to bring that dialogue out after the COP. So what you're going to see is us organising a series of interviews. So there'll be a little bit of moving around and there'll be some cameras. Appreciate your patience while we do that, but you will still hear from our esteemed panel and you will be able to ask questions at the end. Thank you. Okay, so with the etiquette of masks off for interview, Director Coates, would you be kind enough to join me? Thank you. You'll need your microphone. So I just want to pause and welcome Director Coates. He's the Director for Environment and Ocean in the Foreign Affairs Ministry of the Chilean government. He's been one of our great advocates for ocean protection over quite a long time, but not so long, just quite a long time. So, Director Coates, can you just start? I mean, appreciating that we've seen a draft text and we're not completely at the end yet, but how blue do you think this COP has been?
Well, it never can be bluer. Huh? I believe that we have to be very ambitious. There are a number of countries, including mine, maybe 30 or more, that have proposed a text. This is the pretty ambitious text. We would have wished it was even more ambitious because this is a text developed by countries that are close to the oceans. But, well, being positive, I believe that this can be the second Blue COP. And why? Well, here we have Spec Kerry, Special Presidential Envoy on Climate of the United States, Secretary Kerry. He was the driving force behind the Our Ocean conferences. In Chile, we organized the second one. Mm-hmm. And we had the chance to establish, for example, a very large a marine protected area at the time, fully protected MPA. And we started, this was the starting point. Today we have about 43% of our economic exclusive zone under some form of protection, and we're talking about the 10th largest in the world. So we have Spec Kerry, but they're also in the UK presidency. Minister Lord Goldsmith has highlighted the same road that we have highlighted, which is incorporating the ocean into the UK presidency by promoting the protection of the global ocean, 30% of the global ocean by 2030. And this is already a lot of progress. So I believe that if negotiations go well, we might have a ambitious and strong covered decision on oceans. There's still a long way to go. But I'm positive because of these reasons. There are so many countries now that are pushing forward the role of the ocean as a climate regulator and carbon sink that we have reason to believe that things will go well.
Thank you. And I mean, you will have seen the draft text that's out. And as you said, there's a lot of progress within this process for the ocean, although we appreciate that obviously more needs to be done. Is there anything missing in your opinion? Is there anything else that should be in there or that states could take on?
Well, yes. We promoted the third Because the Ocean Declaration together with Monaco and France and 20 other countries at the beginning of COP26. And amongst other things, we highlighted the need to put the oceans into the global stocktake. However, in that text, I don't see the global stocktake. So yeah, there are some things that we would have liked to be there that are missing. But well, we still have hope. there's still many hours of negotiations,
True.
and I believe that many more countries will drop in to push this idea forward.
Thank you. And looking ahead to beyond this COP, COP27, what are your blue hopes for that?
Well, it depends on what we build today. It depends on how strong we are and how because I wish to highlight the following thing. To reach the targets, we need not only land, which is already there, and by that I mean forests, tropical forests, boreal forests, temperate forests, but we also need the oceans. The oceans are a great carbon sink. They capture up to 10 times more carbon than forest. But it's not about taking away forest. It's to complement what the Earth has as nature-based solutions to reach that goal. And this is why I don't understand why it has taken so many years, 25 years, to have the oceans in this situation, this expecting situation. So that would be my point. We have to build step by step.
Thank you, and we'll invite you back at the end to take questions. I'll remove the mic from you. Thank you. Thank you, Director Coutts. I'm now very pleased to be joined by one of my scientific colleagues, Dr. Rashid Somalia. Come up, Rashid. You can take your mask off now. Dr. Somalia is from the University of British Columbia. He does extraordinary work, particularly on fisheries and their role in climate mitigation, amongst many, many other things. So Rashid, just tell us why you think it's so important that this climate COP has a heightened focus on the ocean.
Yeah, so the ocean actually is just a big part of the Earth, right? It's 70% of the Earth's surface. So you just cannot solve this problem without bringing the ocean in. So there is a very strong connection. And as we go through the questions, I'll give you more data on why this is so
you do
important.
That. Thank you.
Yeah.
And you've had a report, well, you have many reports. You're one of our most prolific scientists, for which we're grateful. But just last week, you had a report along with a number of other scientists published in Aquatic Conservation, just looking at what the COP this COP, the CCC needs to engage with in relation to the ocean. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, what was the really important piece that you wanted the leaders to know?
Yeah, so our paper, which was done by many scientists, actually highlighted why we cannot ignore the ocean, right, when we deal with climate. And we kind of itemized about 6 different things that the world needs to do as it relates to the ocean to make sure that we don't mess up the ocean, because, look here, what we do with climate change impacts the ocean, and what we do with the ocean impacts the climate. I could elaborate this a bit if you have time.
Yes, go.
If you just take fishing, okay, we are overfishing all over the place, right? And overfishing, there are 3 key elements of that. Number 1, we are taking too much fish that nature can provide. So one thing to note. Number 2, we are taking big fish first, then the next big one. That's the second thing. Number 3, as we overfish, we are also destroying a lot of the ocean habitat. Bottom trawlers banging the floor and taking down the habitats. All these 3 elements actually contribute to climate mitigation. The more animals you have there, you know the poop from fish and marine life actually sequester a lot of carbon. So poop is useful and important in this case. So overfishing is an element in how we impact this.
One of the things I struggled with, if I'm to be honest, is when I was reading your report, is how very complicated it is.
Yeah.
And I tried to look at stratification just as an example of how the climate and the ocean interact and then counter-interact and then feedback loops, and it was extraordinarily complicated. Is there some way you feel that we could integrate the science and the knowledge more into policy to help our decision makers understand that better?
Yeah, I think economics can help because for many of us, the dollars do talk, euros do talk, right? So the more we can show people how what is happening at the larger scale can impact their economic well-being, I think the more. And I can give you an example here. We did a study in British Columbia where we looked at how much more will citizens have to pay under different scenarios of climate change if they insist on eating the same quantity and quality of fish under different climate change. And we came out with a huge number. The BC will have to spend hundreds of millions more to be able to eat that under severe climate change. And that got a lot of attention. I mean, everybody, oh my gosh, to eat sockeye, I have to pay that. So that is one way, you know. Another way is maybe we should think of this, and this is a new idea, we'll have to work through this. Maybe we should find a way to give every human being a carbon budget. Just like your salaries. You have a carbon budget. You decide whether you want to fly here or you walk to the office or you avoid eating beef because of all the pollution that comes from the methane, right? And so carbon budgeting for people might be another way we can get people to sit up. And policymakers too.
Yeah. I think, well, Rashid already knows I'm really excited about this because I think it'll make stratification something that the layperson doesn't need to understand because they understand how they can make a difference. So yeah, we'll work on that one together. Yeah. Thank you very much, Rashid. I'll see you again in a minute. Thank you. I'm delighted, too many microphones, delighted to invite the ambassador to the UN for Palau to join me now, Silana Said. Thank you. Here, Ambassador Said, have a microphone. Now, I think you're quite new.
I am.
You are. How long have you been in your post?
I've been in my post since September, so I'm one of the newer UN ambassadors.
Well, welcome.
Thank you very much.
I'm not sure if we should say welcome to the madness, but in any event, welcome to the ocean world. We're very glad to have you. I would like to ask, because we're thinking about beyond COP, so we'll all go home at some point in the next few days, but obviously the struggle to protect the ocean goes on. And one of the first things really that we can look forward to in 2022 is our Ocean Palau.
Yes.
So I just wonder why you feel that's important and what it will achieve.
Thank you. Yes, we're very excited to be at COP and try to drive momentum to our ocean conference in February. Just as a bit of background, Our Oceans was started by then Secretary John Kerry in 2014 to really drive some awareness and mobilization towards the conservation and preservation of oceans. It was a very important initiative, and we in 2022, it will be the first time that a small island developing state is hosting an Our Ocean conference. We think that's really important because we are small blue ocean economies. For a lot of large countries, the ocean is kind of, a secondary thought. And when you come to a small island developing state, you'll see that the ocean is really the main engine of our economies. It's the underlying basis for the culture and our cultural heritage and identity. So we really want to show that to the world and also showcase that the ocean is a very big component in the fight against climate change. It's a very vulnerable piece of the planet that we have to protect. So we really want to take the momentum from COP and bring it to the Oceans Conference. Just also as a bit of background, Our Oceans Conference has generated over 1,000 commitments, covering almost 5 million square miles of ocean conservation and marine protected areas. And it's also generated over $91.5 billion in commitments. So it is a very important initiative, and we think going forward, it's going to be we hope that'll be a very big success in going towards the conservation and utilization of the oceans.
Thank you. And I'm just wondering, as a big ocean state, along with the other big ocean states that have attended this COP, how is Palau feeling that the COP is going in oceanic terms?
Well, I think we'd like to see the COP get consistently bluer, I think is kind of the sentiment. We're seeing a little bit of traction in getting the oceans incorporated into the dialogue, but we really need to see more of that. We think that a big part of the solution for climate change really has to do with the ocean, the climate-ocean nexus, whether it's carbon sequestration for various parts of the ocean and whatnot. But we feel like as small island developing states, our voices haven't been amplified quite loudly enough, and we will continue to push the blue agenda forward at future COPs.
And is there something that you feel that we can all do around our ocean in, is it February?
February, so it's February 16th and 17th. Yes, we're really inviting all NGOs, all kind of foundations, civil service, to come and mobilize in Palau and help these heads of state and heads of government and foreign ministers to really coalesce and push towards like a more progressive agenda around oceans. We see that's what's happening at COP with a lot of people coming in and providing a lot of pressure. We think that's a really important part of these kinds of conferences. So we really invite everybody who's interested in ocean work to please come and join us in February.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Thank you.
And I'm now delighted to be joined by Ambassador Thomson. Ambassador Thomson is the UN Secretary General's Special Envoy for the Ocean. He's also co-chair and founder, I'm sure, of Friends of Ocean Action and our tireless ocean leader. I'm going to ask you to come slightly closer to me sorry about that. Apologise very much for that. That's very lovely. Just for the purposes of camera, here's your microphone and you can lose your mask now.
I'll take my mask down after my first few words, but it's my brand. I want you all to see it first.
All right, everyone get a picture. This is your moment. Get a picture of the brand.
To conserve and sustainably use the ocean's resources. That's what we've all agreed to back in 2015. How are we doing? Let's talk about that.
Okay. All right. How are we doing?
Badly.
Well, let's just look forward because 2022 have quite a few opportunities, at least for us to platform the ocean, not least, arguably most important amongst those being the UN Ocean Conference, which we've been waiting, it's been delayed twice, I think, because of the COVID? Once, okay. So that's going to be in June of 2022. What does it need to achieve? Because as you say, we're not doing so well on SDG 14.
Okay, so no healthy planet without a healthy ocean. Ocean's health measurably in decline. Basically, if you take all the targets of SDG 14, you address where those declines are, be it acidification, be it deoxygenation, be it global warming causing rising sea levels, death of coral, be it habitat destruction, be it overfishing, or be it the rampant pollution which we've been putting on. And between now and the Ocean Conference, because the Ocean Conference is the moment of truth, where we hold SDG 14's feet to the fire, really, as to how we're doing. And, so the conference agenda is already set out by member states, and it's a comprehensive one. Have a look on the UN Ocean Conference website, and you'll see what's going to happen there. It's very comprehensive. But if I may, there's, between now and then, there's some extremely important meetings happening. And you've heard the reference to the Our Oceans Conference in Palau. Look forward to being there. President Macron is also having a One Ocean Summit early in February, also very important. This is all building towards the universal moment for the ocean. The universal moment being the UN Ocean Conference. This is the one that we've all signed up to. And that's, as I say, where we've got to be putting all our energies between now and then. But there are other meetings which are existential in nature. One, Rashid knows all about this one. We can tick an SDG target off as job done in December. I'm referring to the WTO ministerial meeting being held in Geneva first week of December, which is where we will eradicate harmful fisheries subsidies. Harmful fisheries subsidies are probably the most damaging of any human activity against marine ecosystems. Why? We are subsidizing industrial fleets to go out and chase diminishing stocks of fish. Human insanity, typical of governments that are prepared to give out subsidies to fossil fuel industries and so on. But that can change in December at the WTO ministerial meeting. There's one country in particular that's blocking it. We've got to turn that country around and see that the madness in blocking it. There's another really important meeting, which is Nairobi in February, which is the United Nations Environmental Assembly. Why is that so important to us ocean people? It's because, and we've now got the numbers, we're over 120 countries supporting this by now. It's where we will mandate the beginning of an internationally binding treaty to stop plastic pollution, to stop the plastic plague that we've unleashed upon nature. So those two meetings, and I'm sorry, I'll add a third one, which is Kunming, which is the biodiversity COP15, where hopefully we will bring in 30 by 30 to protect 30% of the planet by 2030.
And also, all being well, we'll have the High Seas Treaty final scheduled negotiating conference in March. Is there, do you have hope that we'll secure a High Seas Treaty?
I think so, yeah. I mean, what we're obviously looking for there is robustness. It's not necessarily the last session of the conference, but it may well be. But obviously we need a very robust treaty coming out of that.
Cool. So do you feel, in terms of where we're at now and how this COP looks like finishing up, do you feel as though that's a good launch pad, building place for the ocean going through 22?
I think this has been a very different COP. I think the ocean has been inside the door now. All previous COPs, beginning with the Blue COP, thanks to Chile in Madrid, we were still really banging at the door. But it was Chile and Spain that got that door open for us. We're inside now. We're sitting at the top table. You've seen the text. As Ambassador Coutts said, there could be some improvements on that. We've got time to do that. But also there could be a watering down of that text, because it's now in the hands of the member states. Yeah. So any of you that have got any influence on your national delegations, tell them to get in there and defend the ocean, because there will be naysayers. This is the pointy end of the conference now. There will be naysayers, and they have to be backed into a corner. You cannot let the health of the ocean be held hostage by one or two countries.
Thank you, Ambassador Thomson. I'm going to ask my panelists to rejoin me up here. We'll need to share microphones, I'm afraid, but I'd like to ask you all a couple more questions, and then we'll see if anyone in the room would like to ask questions as well.
Come in the middle.
I know it's a struggle, Rashid, with all the bits and pieces. Too many things. So hopefully you'll be able to hear without the headsets, but we'll give it a go. So just going back to the high seas for a minute, I'm curious if any of you feel that we're going to, Ambassador Thomson, you said we will land the treaty. You're not sure if we'll land it in March. How are you all feeling? Are you feeling optimistic that we'll get a treaty inside 2022, or should we be feeling a bit more patient? If you'd like to, Director Coutts.
Okay. Well, thank you for the question. Well, first of all, ocean protection is one of the keys to solve the climate problem. And there's a need to approach the oceans in an integral way. Not only in terms of climate change, but through other processes, ongoing UN processes, such as BBNJ that you have highlighted, with the purpose of protecting biodiversity beyond national jurisdictions, envisaging also the creation of a network of high seas MPAs. Then you have the protection of 30% of the global ocean by 2030 under the CBD. We have what Rashid highlighted, the elimination of harmful subsidies for fishing, creating over capacity and overfishing as well. But if we do not create an integral approach that breaks down the silos in these negotiations, there will going to be very little progress because we have one planet. It's one blue planet, and there has to be an interconnection, as Peter has highlighted frequently, between these processes. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, not much progress has been done on any of them. Maybe now in the WTO we have the chance, but in general, the pandemic has slowed the pace for all of these processes. And we know that there's a sense of urgency highlighted every time by the IPCC. And in this connection, I just want to say one thing, that as we probably know, we have the 10th largest EEZ. We have 43% of that EEZ under some form of protection. But we have to be more ambitious, and we believe that we have to go into the high seas as well, creating MPAs there. And so what we did is to propose an MPA in the high seas in the southeastern Pacific, in the Nazca and Salas y Gomez fracture. This is one of the 10 EBSAs under the CBD, ecologically or biologically significant areas. And under the negotiations in BBNJ, there's going to be a mechanism, which is not there yet. But the sense of urgency has pushed us forward to introduce into the South Pacific Regional Fisheries Management Organization the idea of analyzing options to conserve that significant area. And we have been lucky because, well, this is a fisheries organization. But BBNJ also gives regional fisheries management organizations a certain role, in terms of not undermining what they have to do. So we are moving forward. We proposed to highlight this in the scientific committee of SPERFMO, and it was approved. So this is a very significant step forward.
Yeah.
We will have to defend it at the commission, which is a political organ of SPERFMO. But well, we are walking we walk the talk.
Yeah.
You see, and we have to go forward. The sense of urgency is there, and there's no point in inaction. Thank you.
Thank you. Rashid?
Yeah, maybe I can just add a little bit about the high seas, because we have been looking at that. We have been looking at the biodiversity effects of high seas MPAs, the economic effect of that, and the social justice angle to that. And actually, if you take all this together, the ideal thing to do is to turn the high seas into a fish bank for the world. Stop all fishing in the high seas. Just stop it, really. That's what the science is saying. If you do that, the fish will get to hide in the high seas, get peace, grow, then they grow up and they come into the country waters, EEZs. The eggs and the larvae go around, so that not only the top 5, 6, 8 countries take all the benefits in the high seas. A small country like Guinea-Bissau can also get the fish when they come, cheaply, less pumping of CO2, talking about what we do in the ocean and climate change. It's just a beautiful solution. You know, when I say this, at first people thought I was crazy to bring this up. But actually, we already have a high seas MPA. The Ross Sea has actually been closed. And this is the one last magic that Secretary John Kerry and Obama managed to do, to get Russia and China to sign on to it before they left office the last time. So we need to talk to these people to really understand how to get this done. Close the high seas, make it a fish bank for the world, and we will be in a better position.
I'm going to acknowledge that Rashid is king of the soundbite, because, yeah, I like that. Fish bank for the world is good. Rashid, while you've got the microphone, I know that you're on the steering committee of IMPAC, which is the Marine Protected Area Congress, which is coming up slightly later in the year. And I'm slightly excited about that because it feels like an opportunity to maybe move into doing. And I just wondered what you and the other panelists thought about that. Is that, you know, can we start to use that platform and other platforms to get into a position where we're actually achieving change on the water?
Yeah, I believe so. The impact is taking place in Vancouver, and yeah, like you said, I'm on the steering committee, and the steering committee is really doing all they can to broaden this, make it global, bring indigenous people. So we have a strong indigenous component to this, and youth, young people, with the aim of actually practically pushing the MPA, the 30 by 30 that was mentioned earlier, forward, using broad knowledge, not just conventional science, but local ecological knowledge from indigenous people and all other groups. So I really have a lot of hope in that. And with NGOs are really keen on this, governments and so on. So hopefully that will move us towards 30 by 30.
Thank you.
To a good place.
Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'll just add to what Rashid said there about Vancouver. Good timing, September. It's moved from June because of the ocean conference, but good timing. Why? We have the 30 by 30 hopefully being adopted in about April. Give us time to have some sensible thoughts about that between then and IMPAC. Let's face the facts. We had 10 by 20. Where were we at when we got to 2020? We were about 7.8. So we didn't get 10 by 20. Now we're saying we're going to get 30 by 30. So, you know, we need to get real here. And I think, I think Vancouver is very good timing for September. Obviously, I fully support the 30 by 30 initiative. We're going to have to be universal in our efforts here. You can't expect sort of Europe and North America to save the world. This is not the way it happens. You've got to make sure that Africa, Latin America, Russia, China are in there in impact, sorting out this 30 by 30, because we need the Southern Ocean. At the moment, Russia and China are blocking those CAMLA MPAs, which would go, we would have 10 by 20 by now if we could get the big Southern Ocean MPAs in place, which have been on the table for a long time, scientifically proven, etc. So universality is the thing. Everybody has to come into the room and talk about this, because everybody's worried about food security as well. So that for IMPAC, I think, is the big thing. How do we get from not achieving 10 by 20 to achieving 30 by 30? It's a massive challenge. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I'm going to ask you one more one-liner for the camera, one-liner question. What is your big blue hope for 2022? What do you really think we can deliver in 22 for the ocean? Let's go along the line. Ambassador Thomson.
Sustainable use.
What do we need to?
What is your hope that we will achieve in 22?
Yeah, you know, this is a new concept that I actually published in my new book, which came out last month, you know. And the title of the book is Infinity Fish. Think about that, Infinity Fish. So in 2022, I hope that more and more of the people of the world will realize that fish is actually more valuable than diamond. I'm using diamond as an example. Fish is more valuable than diamond. I said this in Namibia. And you know, in Namibia, fish and diamond, and they were blown away. There are two reasons. Number one, fish is forever, actually. It's renewable. If we manage it effectively, have all the things to, you can continue to nourish people, feed people, employ people to infinity. Mathematically, if you add anything that gives you, even if it's small, to infinity, the value is infinity. Diamond, you take a ton of it, you are never going to be able to dig a ton of it again, right? So unlike popular palace, diamond is not forever. Take it out of your mind. The final point is that if I ask you here, how many people have eaten fish this week or the last week, more than 50% will raise their hand, in Namibia too. So I asked them, how many of you have seen diamond in your life? Almost zero. So diamond is too elitist. Value is limited. Fish, anyone can catch, feed their family. So fish is more valuable than diamond. Let's get more people to believe in this and we will be in good shape. Thank you.
Well, I would like to see the ocean embedded in the convention. It's been such a long time, 25, 26 years, and we're still fighting. I think that's very sad, because here the objective is to reach the objectives of the Paris Agreement. And if we do not use nature-based solutions at hand, not only forests, but also the ocean, we will never reach that objective.
I personally feel like the big key to saving our oceans is really in the creation of sustainable blue economies. So my wish for 2022 is how do we come together to really unlock blue financing so that ocean states, including small island developing states, can really use this amazing resource of the ocean, conserve it and develop it well so that it can feed our families, it can feed our people, and we could also use it, to use your analogy on diamonds, for us we call it blue gold. So, that's kind of my wish for 2022 is that as an international community we band together and unlock blue financing to create blue sustainable economies.
I'd like to second what the ambassador has just said. I mean, moving the climate finance needle in the direction of sustainable blue economy, it's just logical. And we're not talking about hundreds of millions, we're talking about trillions of dollars here. It's the future for our children, the sustainable blue economy, whether you're talking about renewable energy, whether you're talking about sustainable foods or medicines, it's all going to be there in the sustainable blue economy. Okay, my final thought would be we are all connected. Okay, now you've heard that many times, but if you think about it, really think about it, you will see that we've been living in silos, we've been working in silos. The whole concept of nations is in a way a siloed way of approaching the world. We tend, because we're big terrestrials, to think about megafauna and to idolize them and fear them in a sense, but that's what we're preoccupied with, when we should be thinking about the basis of life, which is the microfauna and the microplants. I always preach about old Prochlorococcus. I just love Prochlorococcus, the smallest photosynthetic organism on the planet, probably the most plentiful. It produces 20% of the oxygen in the biosphere. How many of our kids get taught about Prochlorococcus? It's all about the elephants and the whales, right? They need to know about the web of life because that's what's keeping us alive. So we're all connected. Thank you.
I want to thank you all very, very much. Thank you also, everyone, for cooperating with the uppy-downy nature of this for filming. I don't want to close off questions, so if anyone's got a burning question, I'm going to give you, okay, running with the mic.
Hi, thank you so much. Lara Pereira from the...
We're going to struggle to... Apologies, just because of the mic system, we're going to struggle to hear you. So if you could shout, that would
Sure,
be...
I can do that. So Lara Pereira, Global Change Institute at Wits University in South Africa. And I just wanted to ask you what your vision for if we got everything right for the ocean by 2050, what would that actually look like? Because I think we're chasing a lot of targets, interim things, but if we could really get there, what would that look like to you?
Yeah, I think that would be an ocean full of life, teeming with life, and an ocean that is actually used to support livelihoods of people and communities, fishing communities. So an ocean full of life will be a good starting point in my view, right? I mean, that's what we would like to see here. Yeah.
Well, I would like to see a sustainable ocean economy. Chile is a part of the ocean panel, and that's one of the objectives. Sustainable ocean plans for 100% of our EEZs, of the 16 countries that are members of. We are doing our job. As I said, we have 43% under some form of protection. We will do more. We have the institutions. We are a pretty relevant ocean economy in terms of fishing, and so on. So that is my vision, and also balanced with conservation. Prosper from the ocean, but conserving to do the ocean's job as a relevant carbon sink and climate regulator.
For me, it would look like three things. One is that it's colorful, so you have a lot of vibrancy. The second is that it's clean, so we get rid of all this marine pollution that's happening all over the world. And the third is that it's bountiful, so we can use it in a sustainable way to really feed our families and our economy and generate money for our economy. So that's what it looks like for me.
Thank you. Yeah, my 4 granddaughters will be in the middle of their lives by 2050. 2050 was the date you gave. So I would like for them, first of all, for them to be not putting out fires and digging out corpses from landslides and flattened Fijian villages by hurricanes and so on. So, you know, I want these guys who are negotiating this text to have that front of mind, that they're there for their children and grandchildren, not for their winning little textual victories. This is about survival of human species. So 2050, I would like us to be in a world where, we're no longer heading to 3 degrees, where we're heading at present, which is a world on fire, as you know, that we've got the 1.5 degrees under control, that we still have coral reefs, so we can still have a relatively healthy ocean. But mostly I would like to see that Homo sapiens, the species that has caused this crisis, to have had a total reformation of the way that species lives on this planet. Not their planet, it's not our planet, the planet, that the way this species lives on this planet, so that we live in a respectful relationship with nature and the ocean, and that we're living within it, not imagining that we control it or that we possess it. Thank you.
Hi, Florencia Ortúzar. I'm with the Inter-American Association for Environmental Defense. I would like to know, I totally agree that it's a bit strange, doesn't make much sense that the ocean hasn't been part of this discussion considering how important it is. But I get a bit worried because how could we guarantee that if we get the oceans inside negotiations, we won't end up with countries using it as compensation? So for example, countries saying, yeah, I've protected 30% of my lands, so now I don't have to do as much inland. So we know that is not, that would be really bad for the ambition that we need. So how can we ensure that when we put oceans in negotiations?
I love your question. It's really important. And, you zoom on the ocean, but actually you could apply that on other sectors also, right? The forest people have gone far, but you could also challenge them. But the good news is, actually, at this conference, there's a group discussion here, going to space to save the world or the Earth. You know that one, right? They're talking about satellite technology that is being developed, that has gone far, that will actually help us to measure how much CO2 you pump, whether you are a big company or a country. So the more we are able to measure, the more we will be able to make sure that people don't cheat, because we are talking about cheating essentially. This is led by Al Gore, our famous Al Gore. They've set up non-profits and academics to develop this. It's called Climate Trace. Climate Trace. I see that as those kind of technologies will help us buffer ourselves from this kind of things. Thank you. Great question.
Hi there, my name is Niall McGrath and I'm a mechanical engineering student at the University of Edinburgh. We've heard a lot about conservation and protection, and I was wondering if that is enough, or do we need to start taking restorative action? And if so, what should we prioritise, and are there any restrictions to restorative actions at the present?
100% yes. Starting in your country, Scotland, could start reforesting, getting the sheep off the land. They weren't there in the first place. It's not an economic industry, it's subsidized. So you can start there. But my country, Fiji, what are we without coral reefs, right? So we've got to be part of this restoration work that's going on. It's a tougher one. Much easier to get rid of sheep and start planting forest. Coral is much more difficult, but we're not going to give up on it. We have to be part of that restoration program, which is now being quite well funded. But just generally, you apply that principle all the way through. Yeah, sure, conserve and protect, but you've got to restore nature to what it was to get back into that balance to which I was referring.
So restoration is important because we have overdone a lot of the things, right? And we should make an effort. I mean, there's no guarantee that we can get back to where we were, but we should make an effort to retrieve some of that. And the beauty is that nature is very kind. If you haven't destroyed nature too much and you pull back, nature usually comes back. We see it in real life and in our models. The second good news is that the economics is actually good. If only we have the patience and the ability to deal with the short-term costs, we're going to get to a better place. We move away from the current misery to a beautiful place where we have more fish and more stuff to support the world rather than be in this messy-looking state here.
Well, I would like to add, because I believe you are Chilean, right? Yeah. Well, you wanted an answer from me to a question that Rashid answered beautifully. It's our task, our job as negotiators to tackle these loopholes, because there will always be loopholes that we have to address. So, yeah, it's up to us, because it's not loopholes will not there are already in forests, and well, we have to develop some mechanisms that don't allow this, and this is done through practice also. As we develop mechanisms, we don't have a mechanism for oceans yet, but we will have to take from the experience of forests, and especially in monitoring the future financial flows. And lastly, I would like to highlight two things from the ocean panel, because I believe that the whole issue is about balance. To prosper from the ocean, yes, and climate action. For example, there are some beautiful blue papers. One highlights that marine ecosystems can capture up to 10 times more than forests, so we have to use them. And on the other hand, investing in climate action, the returns are enormous. For every dollar, the yields are $5, so 1 to 5. So this is also something that is essential to the financial flows and to motivate investments.
Hi, thank you. This is Tom Collinson from Blue Ventures and the Transform Bottom Trawling Coalition. I'd like to ask the panel what your perspectives are on the place that the most destructive form of fishing, bottom trawling, should have in the future of the world's oceans. And in particular, I'd like to know what role you think restrictions on bottom trawling can play in meeting the climate change mitigation and biodiversity conservation targets that we're all working towards. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is another one. Yeah. So bottom trawling, damaging to the ocean. The science has shown that in addition to really messing up the bottom of the ocean, there's also a lot of bycatch. And this one, you know, I was on a little boat following a big trawler on the waters of Senegal years ago, and it just broke our hearts. I mean, they're looking for shrimp. They will throw out any other fish they catch. It was really heartbreaking. So we were following them, and we collected this fish, came back to the village and had a barbecue, and it was food for people, which would have rotten and destroyed the ocean. So we need to really fish more cleverly than we are doing. And the reason they are doing this is because it's short-term economics, right? This is where regulation has to come in to help us make sure that this thing doesn't happen. You probably are aware of the recent paper, which I'm not a co-author of, but was led by Enric Sala, where they estimated that bottom trawlers, by turning the bottom of the ocean, they release prematurely stored carbon, which is the equivalent of all the carbon emitted by the aviation sector. This really blew my mind. Even me, right? I know it's large, but not that large, you know, and we're going to know more and more about this. So, you know what? Let's get them. We don't need them. We don't need them to really get the feed to fish people, really, to feed people. All right.
Hi, Chase James. I'm a graduate student at Scripps Institution of Oceanography. And I just had a question about sustainability in fisheries, and specifically in countries like Canada and the US that have historically focused on stock assessments that are science-based. A lot of these fisheries are labeled as really sustainable, but then the food that they catch is then processed, shipped across the Pacific Ocean, processed in China, then shipped back, right? And so that seems very nearsighted in terms of our sustainability goals. And I was just wondering, how do you get these countries to focus on global sustainability as well as these regional sustainability goals?
Well, I don't have an answer for that, but I believe that there are some certifications, and increasingly these certifications have gone wrong. I don't want to name some of them, but there's a lot of greenwashing there, and this is really bad, because we believe that sustainability is part of competitivity when we talk in economic terms, and if these certifications are so weak, just to name a word, because I don't want to be very negative, because I believe that some are good, but sustainability is, for us, it's an element of competitivity, especially in the future, and not only for fisheries, for everything.
Sure. I also don't have a very clear answer to that question. I think it's a very complicated one, because it's not just in fisheries. I think if you look at most industries in the world, it goes to Asia, it's processed, and then it's shipped all over the world, and because they have economies of scale and cheap labor and things like that. So if we look at what's happened in the other industries, they've really used consumer education as a tool. So whether it's labeling on the fish how many carbon credits or carbon emissions come from eating that because it's processed in the U.S. versus in Asia. Or I think it needs to be a market mechanism. So maybe there's some sort of carbon tax, but it's not an easy question. So I think we have to look towards a broader economic conversation to solve it.
Okay. Okay. My name is Ibukun Adewumi, and I work for the Global Ocean Account Partnership, Sydney, Australia. Uh, there was this ocean climate change dialogue that was held last year, December, and under the chair subsidiary board for scientific and technological advice. And now some countries are pushing for the continuation of this dialogue as an entry point into the UNFCCC convention. So do you think this is sort of delay tactic to push ocean into the convention itself, or it's a strategic way of making sure that ocean feature prominently in the convention? Thank you.
I'll answer that. I think the latter, and the text to which I referred, I'm sure you can get a hold of a copy. I saw it this morning for the first time. Makes it very clear that Subster high-level dialogue continues. Of course, it has to be agreed by Friday by the member states. But I think it's very important that continues. So I just wanted to answer the earlier question as well about what we do about our fish consumption. I think personally, I believe in eating locally when it comes to fish. I always ask whether the fish has been legally caught, because 1 in 5 fish has not been. Whether it's in a fish restaurant or whether it's at the fish market, I always ask that question. So I think ethically, we need to change our ways when it comes to consuming products from the sea. Secondly, I'd say that we need to move away from the kind of fish that we're eating. Eating predators, top of the table fish. That's just wrong. We need to be eating. When I say we, I mean the billions of people in the world that rely on it from pond aquaculture and so on, which is the way most of the fish that we consume is produced. But I believe that our children will not be eating these kinds of foods anyway. They're going to be eating some kind of marine tofu produced by phytoplankton. They're going to be eating sustainable aquaculture foods like seaweeds and shellfish and so on that don't need to be fed with other fish.
Okay, go on. Rashid wants the final word.
Yeah, so Peter, that's a nice projection into the future. But what I usually say about your kind of comment is that at least we should give them the option to choose not to eat salmon and tuna, and we should give them the option. Anyway, back to your sustainability question, I think you are touching on something really big. Ideally, we should have one authority that actually looks at all these things, dimensions, to make decisions and regulations to help us. But we don't have that. We are nation states, and that's what we have, maybe for good reasons, because you don't want one big person. If you have a terrible human being, then we're all in trouble. No, so that's okay. But what this has led me to, at least in a very simple sense, to think is we probably should just take out what we call fisheries management, because it's too narrow. And this thing was brought in earlier just to kind of tell us how much fish the industry can take. So it's all about taking the fish. But there are many more services, as we know, carbon sequestration. So we should change fisheries management into ocean management. It's something much bigger, so that we'll take all elements into account. Yeah, thank you.
I think that's, sadly, because we have to end, but that is the perfect way to end. So thank you. And I think I do want to genuinely say thank you, because it's not always easy, as a frog once said, being green, and it's not always easy being blue. And it can be quite depressing and sad. And last night I was feeling a bit like, oh, are we ever going to? But actually, you people always give me hope and you give me energy. So thank you for your time. Good luck with the rest of the COP, and we'll see you soon.